Have you ever stopped to think about how many lies you tell every day? And I'm not just talking about those little harmless excuses like saying you're on your way when you haven't even left the house yet. I'm talking about the lies you tell yourself, the mask you wear to fit in, the role you play because you're afraid of what would happen if the world saw who you really are. Now imagine that. All of a sudden, you were forced to tell the truth. Not just to others, but to yourself. Every insecurity exposed, every desire revealed. No excuses, no justifications, just the truth, raw and unfiltered. Could you handle that? Psychotherapist Brad Blanton believes that the key to your freedom lies precisely in this: radical honesty. According to him, we've been conditioned to lie since childhood, suffocated by moralism, social expectations, and the fear of judgment. But the truth is, these lies are killing you. They erode your authenticity, destroy your relationships, and keep you from living a real life. And you know who talked about this long before? Friedrich Nietzsche. He saw traditional morality as a prison, a system designed to tame human beings and disconnect them from their true essence. To him, lying to yourself was the greatest sin of all. And that's why his philosophy is so deeply connected to radical honesty. Both challenge you to strip away illusions and face reality without filters. But the real question is, are you ready for it? If you decide to keep watching, get ready, because we're about to break down the lies you tell yourself, explore the fear that's keeping you from being free, and in the end, challenge you to take the first step toward absolute truth. Since childhood, you've learned that certain truths can't be spoken. You swallowed your tears when you were told to be strong. You hid your anger because they said it was ugly to get upset. You forced a smile because looking happy is more acceptable than admitting you're lost. Over time, this stopped being a conscious choice. You started believing the lies you tell yourself, and that's how the illusion you call me was born. Nietzsche would say this isn't your fault. It's a symptom of a world that teaches us to obey before we even understand what it means to exist. To him, traditional morality, imposed by religions and societies, is nothing more than a system of domestication, a mechanism designed to turn us into docile servants, incapable of seeing beyond the rules imposed upon us. And the most ironic part? You defend this morality as if it were your own, when in reality it was implanted in you like a virus. The persona you've built is a shield. You shaped yourself to fit what others expect, and that adaptation was necessary. But the real question is, how far does this go? When does adaptation become a burden? When does the mask stick so tightly to your face that you forget who you were before you put it on? Brad Blanton argues that most people live as hostages to their own image, prisoners of the lies they told to fit in. But Nietzsche warned about this danger long before when he said, "Become who you are." The phrase may seem simple, but it hides a brutal truth. You are not who you think you are. You are a reflection of the stories you've made up about yourself. And the worst part is that this lie spreads into every area of your life. You pretend you're satisfied with your job because admitting otherwise would mean facing the fear of the unknown. You convince yourself that your relationship still has a future, even though you know the flame burned out long ago. You avoid certain conversations because the truth might be too painful to bear. But while you hide behind these falsehoods, time keeps moving. And every day you spend living as a lie is one less day spent being who you truly are. Nietzsche despised this stance. To him, truth isn't something you seek in a comfortable, peaceful way. Truth must be ripped out by force, as if tearing away old skin to expose raw flesh. The process of destroying your own illusion is painful but necessary. And this is exactly where radical honesty comes in. Because when you start telling the truth, not just to others but to yourself, something changes. Your perception of who you are shifts. What once felt solid dissolves, and for the first time, you feel the real weight of freedom. But freedom is a terrifying concept. Many people would rather stay in their comfortable prison than give up the security of their lives. After all, who would you be if you stopped hiding? If you admitted that you don't have all the answers, that you feel anger, envy, desire, and that many of your certainties are nothing more than illusions. That's why Nietzsche said that few are strong enough to accept the truth without embellishment. Most people need illusions to keep moving forward, but you don't have to be like most people. You can choose to open your eyes right now. The first step is simple and at the same time incredibly difficult. Stop lying to yourself. Accept that the version of you that exists today may not be real, and more than that, accept that you can change. That the lies you've built don't have to be your prison forever. And that, in the end, the only thing truly keeping you from being free is the fear of facing your own reflection without filters. Are you ready to see who you really are? From the moment you were born, an invisible process began shaping your mind. First came the simplest rules. Don't touch that. Don't cry. Be a good kid. Then came the more subtle rules, the ones no one explicitly explained to you, but that you absorbed through disapproving looks, through the uncomfortable silence when you said something inappropriate. Little by little, you understood that certain truths should not be spoken, not because they were inherently wrong, but because society cannot handle raw, unfiltered reality. And so, you learned to lie. Nietzsche saw this process as a sickness afflicting humanity. He called it the morality of slaves, a system where truth is sacrificed for the sake of obedience, where the strong must weaken themselves to avoid hurting the feelings of the weak. Society doesn't want you to be authentic. It wants you to be predictable, controllable, someone who follows the rules without question. That's why, from an early age, you were taught to repress your most genuine impulses. If you felt anger, you were told to swallow it. If you had a desire, you were made to feel guilty. If you disagreed with something, you were warned it was better to stay quiet. The result? You started doubting your own feelings. Brad Blanton argues that this repression turns us into artificial versions of ourselves. He explains that morality, like a virus, installs itself in our minds and forces us to act automatically, without questioning whether the rules we follow make sense to us. And here lies one of Nietzsche's most brutal critiques of traditional morality. It alienates us from our true selves and turns us into puppets. In On the Genealogy of Morality, he dismantles the idea that there is a universal, unquestionable morality. To him, everything we call good or bad was invented by someone with their own interests. And the worst part? We accept these rules without even realizing it. But what's the price of this? Simple: a disconnection from who we truly are. When you hide your opinions to avoid conflict, you are silencing your own voice. When you repress your desires out of fear of judgment, you are sacrificing your authenticity. When you say everything is fine when it clearly isn't, you are slowly destroying your relationship with the truth. The problem isn't just what you say to others. The problem is what you say to yourself. Nietzsche believed that this self-deception was humanity's greatest tragedy. He said that people would rather cling to comforting lies than face the harshness of reality. This explains why most people choose to live in denial, because the truth hurts. Admitting that you're unhappy at your job means you should do something about it. Admitting that your relationship is a sham means you have to face loneliness. Admitting that the morality you follow isn't truly yours, but imposed upon you, means you must take responsibility for creating your own values. And responsibility is terrifying, because it means there's no one else to blame. It's so much easier to say that things are the way they are, that there's no way out, that the rules have always existed and always will. But Nietzsche challenges this idea. To him, the only truly free person is the one who breaks away from imposed lies and creates their own morality. That's what he calls the Übermensch. Someone who doesn't blindly follow the rules but questions them. Someone who destroys whatever is necessary to build something real. And that's exactly what radical honesty proposes. Blanton argues that the only way to break free from this mental prison is to start telling the truth about everything, about what you feel, about what you want, about who you really are. That means breaking rules. That means disappointing people. That often means losing friends, jobs, relationships. But what's the alternative? Spending your entire life playing a character, lying to yourself until your last breath? The real question is, do you have the courage for this? Because the truth is brutal. It doesn't care about comfort. It destroys whatever is necessary to reveal what truly exists. And more often than not, what lies beneath your lies isn't pretty, but it's real. And only when you accept that can you truly start to live. Now the choice is yours. Keep hiding or finally open your eyes to who you really are. Imagine that from now on you commit to never lying again. Not to others, not to yourself. You look in the mirror and without filters say what you truly think about your life, about who you are, about the things you do just to please others. You go to work and admit that you hate it. You look your partner in the eye and confess that you no longer feel the same. You tell your friends that you find their conversations shallow and empty. Sounds like a nightmare, doesn't it? But that's exactly the kind of radical honesty Brad Blanton proposes, and exactly the kind of brutal truth Nietzsche would admire. Nietzsche believed that society was built on a pact of comfortable lies. He saw morality as an obstacle to self-knowledge, a structure that makes you live according to rules you never consciously chose. He challenged people to destroy these inherited values and create their own. But to do that, there was one inevitable first step. the courage to face the truth. Blanton follows this same idea by arguing that radical honesty is a form of detoxification. He says the truth can be painful at first, but once you accept it, life starts to flow in a completely new way. The process has 3 levels. The first is the factual level, where you simply stop hiding information. You don't lie about your routine, your choices, or your actions. If someone asks how your marriage is going, you answer exactly how you feel, no filters. If you cheated, you admit it. If you're unhappy, you say it openly. This level already scares a lot of people, but it's just the surface. The second level is the emotional level, where you don't just tell the truth about your actions, but also about what you feel. It's not enough to admit you cheated. You have to say why. You have to talk about the pleasure, the guilt, the emptiness you tried to fill. It's not enough to say you hate your job. You have to admit the fear of change, the laziness of looking for something new, the comfort of mediocrity. This level is devastating because it forces you to face parts of yourself you've always tried to avoid. The third and deepest level is the experiential level. Here, you don't just tell the truth, you live according to it. You stop maintaining relationships that don't make sense. You get rid of masks, conventions, appearances. You become, to use a Nietzschean term, a free spirit, someone who doesn't fear reality but embraces it, someone who doesn't just speak the truth but becomes the truth. This comes at a price. The first impact of radical honesty is chaos. People will distance themselves from you. Bonds that once seemed unbreakable will shatter. If you say exactly what you think to your boss, you might get fired. If you're completely honest with your partner, they might leave you. If you expose your thoughts without censorship, you might be judged. Nietzsche spoke of this danger. He said that human beings are not ready for the truth, that most people need their illusions to keep existing. That's why, when someone dares to tell the truth, they become a threat. But the reward for those who survive this initial impact is absolute freedom. The freedom of never having to hide anything again. The freedom of no longer living to please anyone. The freedom of looking at yourself without guilt, without shame, without falsehood. It's what Nietzsche would call becoming who you are, a painful but necessary process in which you destroy the false versions of yourself to finally discover what lies beneath. And maybe you're thinking, but what if I don't like what I find? The answer is simple. At least it will be real. And something real, no matter how painful, will always be better than a comfortable illusion. The question remains, do you have the courage to see yourself without masks? The truth is a wild animal. It cannot be tamed, it doesn't follow rules, and it doesn't ask for permission to exist. Most people spend their lives running from it, building walls, hiding behind excuses, dogmas, and conventions. Because the truth is terrifying. It shatters illusions, strips away everything comfortable, and forces you to face what you fear the most, raw, unfiltered reality. Nietzsche said that true freedom belongs only to those who have the courage to bear the weight of their own existence. To him, most people choose to live as slaves to inherited values, trapped in moral systems they never questioned. He saw this as weakness, a cowardly escape from the responsibility of becoming who you truly are. At its core, this is the same logic behind Brad Blanton's radical honesty. Those who lack the courage to face the truth are doomed to live a lie. But here's the problem: being free is dangerous. If you abandon all the lies you've built, what's left? Who are you without the masks? And more than that, what happens when you start telling the truth and realize that the entire world prefers to live in illusion? The clash is inevitable. You might lose friends. You might disappoint your family. You might realize that the relationship you built was based on convenience. And without the lies holding it together, there's nothing left. And then comes the hardest part. Do you accept this chaos, or do you retreat to your comfort zone? Nietzsche described this choice in his concept of the eternal return. He said, imagine that you are condemned to live this same life over and over, forever. Every choice you make now, you will have to relive infinitely. If that idea terrifies you, it means you're living the wrong way. It means you are betraying yourself. So stop and think. If you had to live your life exactly as it is, forever, would you feel at peace? Or would you realize that you've spent years trying to fit in, trying to please others, running away from yourself? Blanton says that the greatest obstacle to radical honesty is fear. The fear of rejection, of judgment, of losing what you have. But Nietzsche already gave us the answer to that. True freedom only comes when you destroy what needs to be destroyed. He said that the pain of transformation is inevitable. But on the other side, there is something greater. There is the Übermensch. The one who doesn't need lies to exist. The one who lives without asking for permission. And the final question is simple. Are you ready for this? Because there is no middle ground. You can keep pretending, keep up appearances, keep carrying the weight of a life that isn't yours. Or you can choose the truth in all its brutality, in all its impact. Choose to strip away everything false, to break free from the chains, to destroy the illusions that keep you trapped. But remember, once you see the truth, there's no going back. So, what will it be? Will you keep lying to yourself, or will you have the courage to be free? If you've made it this far, congratulations. Not because this video was long or because you endured it until the end, but because in a way, you've already started facing the truth. Most people would have closed this video at the first sign of discomfort, at the first sentence that tickled that part of the mind where lies are safely tucked away. But you stayed. On some level, you know that something is wrong with the way you live, that there's something inside you that has been suffocated by moralism, imposed rules, and the fear of rejection. Nietzsche would say that you're standing at the edge of an abyss. And not in a negative way, but in a transformative one. He believed that real life only begins when we destroy our illusions and face the void. The question is, what will you do now? Will you take a step back, cling to your lies, pretend nothing has changed? Or will you face the abyss, accept that the truth can be uncomfortable, but that the freedom that comes with it is priceless? Brad Blanton presents a challenge. Tell the truth. Not tomorrow, not a month from now, but now. Choose one thing, a truth you've been hiding, that weighs on your chest, that suffocates you, and say it. To yourself, to someone, to the world. Because one thing is certain, once you start being honest, it's impossible to go back to lies without tasting the bitterness of pretense. And here's one last thought. If you had to live forever as the version of yourself you are today, would you be at peace? Or would you realize that you've spent years running away from who you really are? Nietzsche would say this is the only question that truly matters. And the answer to it isn't in books, it's not in this video, it's inside you. If this content made sense to you, if it unsettled you, if it made you reflect, let me know in the comments. And if you had the courage to tell the truth about something, share your experience here. Who knows, your truth might inspire someone else to do the same. And of course, subscribe to the channel or don't. After all, the choice is yours. But if you've made it this far, I'd bet that deep down, you already know what to do. Now go. Be honest, be free,